Kids don't forget.
Kids don't forget.
You kids don't forget.
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 So Christian, what's up, baby? How you feeling today?
What's good? What's good?
Man, I'm excited that you're here.
Yeah, man.
So did I say your name correctly? What actually is the correct pronunciation of your name?
You said it right. I usually go by Chris. You know what I mean? But my full name is Christian.
Christian, okay.
I grew up hating that name.
You did? Really?
Yeah.
Really?
It just sounded like, I don't know. I just didn't like it.
Okay.
I just rather went by Chris.
So you told nobody your name was Christian?
Yeah. Well, growing up, my first name is Chris, but my middle name is Tunde.
Okay.
Which is African. My dad's from Sierra Leone.
Okay.
So my family called me Tunde. Everybody that knew me growing up around the way, family, they called me Tunde.
Oh, okay.
So when I went to school, that's when I started going by Chris.
Okay. Okay.
And my full name is Christian Cattell.
Got
Christian
it.
Babatunde Cattell.
Okay.
So that's when I started going by Christian, was when I started school. But, everybody called you Chris. People thought my name was Christopher. I wouldn't even correct them. You know what I mean?
Right.
I just let it roll because I hated Christian.
Okay. Got it. Got it. Why? Why did you hate it?
I don't know. I can't really give you a good reason.
Okay.
It just sounded corny to me.
Got it. Got it. Got it. Got it. What were your other nicknames?
I told you my middle name was Tunde, so
Right.
that name got jacked up to, man, people call me Tuna Fish, Tuesday. My man uncle called me Toenail.
Was there any nickname that you hated? Some people hated the nicknames.
Everybody was just messing around. My dad was African. I had an African name, so my one man would call me like Tunde Kabunde Kabunde.
Right.
So I just had all that growing up.
Okay.
People teasing me about my name. It was it was a unique name. What's funny is Chris is like one of the most common names, of course.
Right. Right.
In Philly. So growing up in Philly, you never hear nobody else named Tunde.
Okay.
But where my dad is from, Tunde is like the most common name in Africa, in Sierra Leone and Nigeria.
Have you ever been there?
Nah. I need to go.
Okay.
I got tons of family over there I never met.
Okay.
I just met my cousin in 2018 in London. I had to go to Europe for work, and I went to London. It was the same week the Eagles played in London. So it was a bunch of people from Philly over there.
Okay.
And I met my cousin. He got like the same story as me. My dad came to America. His dad went to London. And, I grew up over here. He grew up over there.
Okay.
So he like 5 years younger than me, something like that.
Okay.
So we linked up and hung out. We're hearing Africans with London accent. Or black people in general.
Right.
But, you get used to it when you see it a lot.
Right.
But, yeah. Then my last name, which is Cattell,
Okay.
has his own story. Because it's like, like I said, my dad was African, but he has a last name that don't sound African at all. Okay. So I literally just found this out maybe like last August, September, that my last name on my dad's side comes from says slave master.
Really?
Yeah. And I thought, being from Africa, they was just, indigenous to Africa. But actually, my dad's either grandfather or great-grandfather was a slave in Jamaica.
Okay.
And they came back to Africa. And it's a lot of Nigerians and Sierra Leoneans with the last name Cattell, which is like amazing. You hear Nigerians, you hear names like Ugoji or African sounding tribal, names, and then you hear Cattell.
Right.
But there's a ton of, if you search Cattell, you'll see a ton of Nigerians come up.
Wow.
Which is crazy.
Okay.
And Sierra Leoneans.
Got it. But you mentioned you're from Philly.
Yeah.
PA.
Philadelphia.
Okay. Do you claim a specific neighborhood?
Yeah, I'm from West Oak Lane.
From West Oak Lane.
It's called Uptown now.
Oh, so Uptown, West Oak
Yeah.
Lane, same thing.
Yeah.
Got
when
it,
I grew up, it was called West Oak Lane. You
Okay.
ask somebody now, and they'll say Uptown.
Okay, got
Yeah,
it. How would you describe your neighborhood growing up?
Growing up, West Oak Lane was like, it wasn't the hood. It wasn't North Philly. It wasn't projects around. You definitely knew you wasn't in the projects when you grew up in West Oak Lane.
Okay.
It was still, we grew up in the crack era.
Right.
I mean, I was
Right.
born in 1980. So 10, 11, 12, 13 was the early 90s. You know what I mean? It still was stuff going on.
Okay.
But it wasn't the hood. Like, you knew when you left West Oak Lane and went down North Philly, you seen the difference. You seen the difference out west, southwest. So, and then, like, when I started high school, you told people from West Oak Lane, they like, oh, you from that punk neighborhood. You know what I mean? Like, that's how it was back then.
Because it wasn't as grimy as it was in other areas.
Exactly.
Okay.
But now, it's grimy as anywhere in
Okay.
Philly. Like,
West Oak Lane, that's where the rapper Cassidy is from, right?
yeah, definitely.
Okay.
He from not far from where it's funny because West Oak Lane, just like other neighborhoods, they have their different sections.
Right.
So I'm from what's called Bottom Side.
Okay.
I think Cassidy from Top Side. There's a couple other sides that I don't know. I was from Bottom Side, so we used to just talk about the other neighborhoods like.
Okay.
Like, if you live close to Sheltonham Mall, we called y'all Sheltonham.
Got it.
Even though it's West Oak Lane.
Right.
We like,
Right.
the Sheltonham Bulls.
So if you were somewhere in Philly, but not in your neighborhood, and they said, where are you from? What would you say?
Back then, I'd say West Oak Lane. I would say West Oak Lane if
Now,
they wasn't from West Oak Lane.
What if you met a person, or like a girl, that's from West Oak Lane too, but she doesn't know you, and she asks you where you from?
I
What
would
would you
say
say?
Bottom Side.
You would say Bottom Side.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So it's different lingo based on the people you talking to.
Exactly.
Okay, got it. So you personally would never say Uptown though.
I mean, I say it now. It doesn't.
You say it now, right? Just
It
to
grew on.
assimilate.
When people first started calling it Uptown,
Right.
back in like I want to say like 99, 2000,
Okay.
time frame,
Okay.
it was like I'm like what?
Right.
Uptown, where that's at? That's here. Oh, all right. So once that's the lingo,
Right.
It kind of falls to. I call it Uptown.
Now, previously, you had given me a history lesson. You had said, like, back in the 60s and 70s, West Oak Lane was considered, like, the upper middle
Back
class
then,
black area.
Yeah, it was when people would move out the hood to West Oak Lane, where they was thinking they was moving out the hood,
Right.
and like, it's definitely is a lot more trees. You know what I
Okay.
mean? The houses, the blocks are a lot more spacious.
Right.
Like South Philly's got these little tiny blocks, even the North Philly little tiny blocks.
Right.
West Oak Lane, you actually got bigger blocks, bigger streets.
Okay.
They still got the small one ways too, but you know what I mean? It just was a different area. It just you could physically look at the houses and see the difference.
Okay.
Like I'll see a YouTube clip of something that somebody filmed in some neighborhood. You look at the house, you can almost tell exactly what part of Philly it's at just by looking at the houses, the way how the driveways, the cement.
Right. You can be like, that's North Philly. That's West Philly.
That's a West Oak Lane house. So
Okay,
that's
got it.
house. You know what I mean? That house is in, like, West Philly had the 3-story row homes.
Right.
I mean, Southwest and West Philly too. So you knew just by looking at the structure of the houses where you was at. And, like, you can almost tell when you meet people what part of the neighborhood they was from. Based on how they dress or... I mean, nowadays, everybody had, like, the same...
Right.
If you from Philly, you wear, like, the same style. You got the same lingo for the most part. But you could almost tell... You could be wrong a lot of times, but you could almost tell where somebody was from just on...
How they dress and how they talk.
Like, Uptown was, like, West Oak Lane and Mount Airy people was known for being, like, pretty boys.
Okay.
We wore different type of clothes. If you see, remember the style, remember the Philly style where everybody had the hoodies, but they just had the neck part tied. And
Yeah, we still do that. Right.
A lot of you see.
But that started in West Oak Lane.
If you seen somebody like say it's like 02,
Right.
You see somebody doing that, it was like an 85% chance he was from West Oak Lane.
Ah, interesting.
You know what I
Okay.
mean?
Okay.
That like those type of things started up that way. You know what I mean? The white tees was like North Philly dudes.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Or like South Philly, something like out that way.
Got it.
Then that ended up being everywhere. We was doing it. You know what I mean? But no, it's all Philly, so we all copy each other's styles and have our own styles.
Now, a lot of people from Philly, they actually say their corner that they're from. So somebody might say, like, I'm from 57 for Larchwood, or I'm from 11 for Oxford. Did you do that? Or are you just like, nah, I'm from West Oak Lane?
That started later. Well, that started around Uptown era when people started claiming blocks.
Right.
You know what
Okay.
I mean? Like I'm from, they call it Shelton Ave now.
Okay.
But nobody really claimed blocks like that growing up around that way.
Okay.
It was either you was top side, bottom side. It was a couple blocks known, like, I don't want to say no block name.
It's all good.
But, you know what I mean? Where we was from, it was like everybody hung out at the playground.
Right.
So, and that playground on Shelton Ave. So,
Okay. But so overall, growing up for you, it wasn't the Philadelphia that other people might know because your hood wasn't, your neighborhood wasn't as like raw as some of the other ones at the time.
Yeah, definitely. Like,
Got it.
like North Philly had like Badlands. It had Richard Island. It had, you know what I mean?
Beirut.
Yeah, all these different areas. Southwest had, you know, King Sesson and all that.
Okay.
52nd Street, Chester Ave, all those, you know, Woodland, you know what I mean? Different little sections. West Oak Lane was just like top side, bottom side.
Got it.
You know what I mean?
Got it. Now, was top side and bottom side beefing or no? Or like, how was that?
It wasn't. It's funny because where I lived at, Broad Street was right here. And on the other side of Broad Street is East Oak Lane.
Oh, okay.
Which is, I guess, they part of Uptown. East
Right.
Oak Lane is like this big.
Okay.
But East Oak Lane and West Oak Lane beefed a lot.
Really?
Which was weird because they all had the same neighborhood schools. So half the time, you cool with somebody, they from East Oak Lane, but then when it's beef, it's like, you might not know these dudes, but this guy right here, oh, that's my man.
Right.
So you just be like, all right, we ain't gonna fuck with him because I know this boy right here.
Okay, got you.
But it always was something that popped off. I remember a couple times my brother and his homies got into it with some East Oak Lane dudes. And then like right on Broad Street was like the pizza store, the other corner store. It was like the hangout spot.
Right.
So we was always up there. They was always up there. So if it popped off,
it was easy
we would
to
see
find.
each other on that corner.
Okay.
Right there on the corner, Broad and Shelton.
Right.
Shelton there, right there. Everybody go to the same pizza store. Had the best cheesesteaks. People we knew used to work there. You know what I mean?
Okay. So you mentioned your brother. So that means you were not an only child.
Nah.
So were you the oldest or the youngest?
I was the youngest. Technically, my brother wasn't blood to me.
Okay.
He
Which doesn't matter. If you call him your brother, that's your bro. Right.
Yeah, my mom basically raised him.
Okay.
Growing up, his mom worked. His mom was a single parent.
Right. So let me ask you this.
My mom was always home taking care of us during the preschool age.
Right
even
now,
after that.
Right now, I want you to imagine you're 10 years old. Right now, at this moment, list out all your siblings. So the bro you was just referring to, how old is he? If you're 10.
I'm 10. My brother Dre, he would have been 12.
Okay.
Yeah, he's 2 years older than me, but my birthday is early in the year. His is later, so I'll be a year younger than him until his birthday passed. So he's 2 years older than my sister Dawn. When I was born, she was 12. So if I was 10, she'd be 22.
Okay.
Which is crazy in my mind saying that. 'Cause growing up, I didn't feel we was that
far apart.
I knew they
Right.
was way older than me, but
because they were
they
kids
was
too.
already grown. When I was 10, she was a grown. She was 22. I'm thinking she might have been like 17, 16 in my mind.
Right.
But, and then my other sister, she 3 years older than her, so she would have been 25.
If you're 10,
but
right.
to me, she seemed way older than...
So what was your relationship with them? Your
like,
2 older sisters.
My oldest sister, she raised me like a mother figure.
Okay.
You know what I mean, she I don't kind of remember a lot, but she tells the stories of like I used to call her Mommy Wanda. I don't remember that, but
even when you were, by the time you were actually 10, she was 25, so she
Yeah.
was a grown woman.
she was 25 and she had a son, which was my nephew.
Okay,
So he's like a little brother to me, but he's my nephew.
right,
He
got
only
you.
like I was 6 when he was born.
Okay, got it.
So, but yeah, she was the motherly sister.
Okay,
Then
okay.
my other sister Dawn, we shared the room growing up.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So she was more like a sister than
Okay.
a mother figure.
Okay.
That's why the age difference.
So she
kinda
wasn't like
blew
mad
my mind.
bossy?
Nah,
Nah.
she was bad as hell. So,
Shout out to Dawn.
so that's why, growing up, my dad was real strict.
Okay.
Even on with them, he wasn't my some
So before
My
you
sisters-
get into that, did you grow up with both parents
yeah
the whole
I did.
time?
Yep.
Which makes you the second most minority in the hood, right? Because I think the top minority. Tell me if you agree. The top minority in the hood is kids who live with just their dad.
Yeah.
Right? That's
That
like the
rarely
rarest
happens.
thing. That's
That-
super rare.
Yeah, that
And
gotta
then-
be the top minority.
And then the second is kids who grew up with both parents the whole time. So that's,
Damn,
yeah, think about it.
that's crazy. Cause like I'm trying to think of everybody I grew up on the same block with. All of my homies I grew up with.
Did you
I
know
might
their
have been-
dads? I grew up with so many people I never
I
even
knew-
saw their dad
I knew a
ever.
couple.
I grew up
My
with
dad-
family cousins who I never saw their dad.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, my man, a couple of my homies on the block he had his dad, my man Fred, my boy Will, his dad was there, his mom and dad. Other than that, my boy Aaron parents was there.
So you had a couple.
I had a couple, but if I think of everybody else,
Right.
my brother, his dad's around, but he didn't live with his dad.
Right.
My man, his dad was around, but he didn't live with his dad.
So keep going. Like, describe your relationship with your sisters. Describe your relationship with your parents, your mom and your dad.
All right, so,
And your bro, too, if you want to throw him in.
well, yeah, let me talk about my parents first.
Okay.
My parents were married before I was born. I was born in 80. They was married like 78, I want to say.
Okay.
And they knew I was going. My mom had already had my older sisters by another man, which is funny because growing up, I never asked questions. I knew that my dad wasn't their dad,
Right.
but he raised them. They called him dad, and that was it. I never.
It's not something you consciously talk about.
Yeah, like in my
right.
mind, like that's how it was.
Got it.
It wasn't nothing to talk about.
Okay.
But now that I'm older, I'm thinking about stuff. Like I never knew who their dad was or what.
No, you never saw him.
I saw him, heard about him, nothing. I think I heard later he had got killed. But even to this day, I don't even really know the whole story.
So your dad was from Sierra Leone.
Yeah.
Where was your mom from?
She was from Philly.
Oh, your mom's from Philly.
She's
Okay.
from here. She grew up in North Philly.
Okay.
Then they moved to West Philly out. In the house in West Philly we still got.
Okay. Did they ever tell you how they met?
Yeah, my mom told me, but I don't remember all the details.
Right. It's all good.
But they met, and as soon as my dad got here, pretty
Okay.
much, maybe like a year after he got here. My dad had a twin sister. They both came over.
Okay.
together.
Did they ever tell you why they came over from Sierra Leone?
No, they never really did.
Right.
I never.
Because you always wonder, like, was it war torn at the time? Did they just want to come to America? Were they students?
My other aunt told me how they came years later. I found this out like 5 years ago.
Okay.
They basically snuck off and came to America.
Got it.
They ain't tell nobody. They just bounced.
Probably because they would have been stopped. Like, nah, y'all ain't going nowhere.
My aunt came first, and my dad tried to pretend like he ain't know nothing about why she left it. He was planning to come right behind her.
Okay.
Then he came. Because my aunt, she came later too. Her kids are my cousins. They live in Jersey.
Okay.
The only family that came to the U.S. is I just talked about all three of them.
Right.
My aunt, my dad, my aunt, and my other aunt, and all the kids
Okay.
from them three. But there's 10 more brothers and sisters over there.
Right,
that I
back
never
in,
met.
back home.
My
Got
dad
it,
had
got it.
13 brothers and sisters.
Got it. So let's start with your dad. How's your relationship with him growing up? You said he was really strict.
Yeah, I mean, I think most people that have either Caribbean parents, that if you're the first generation of being a citizen of the U.S. and your family from like African parents, Caribbean parents, people that I met, Jamaican parents, Haitian, they all pretty much got the same story. Your parents are very, very motivated to have you succeed, especially in school.
Okay.
So there was no slacking when it came to being, disciplined about doing your schoolwork. If I ever, all right, let me tell you this. I went to public school for kindergarten. I got in trouble one time, and I was in Catholic school.
Got it.
Because I think my
You got one little fight and your mom got scared.
That's basically I think what happened. I never like confirmed this.
Right.
But I remember getting in trouble, and I remember we was looking. We were touring the Catholic school. Ended up going to like the next week. So I think and then my sister, when she grew up, she was cutting class, not going to school, coming home with failing grades.
Right.
So as soon as that happened, my dad was like, oh, fuck that.
Right.
Excuse my language. He was like, nope, taking you here. So, and I think it was based off of, my sister being so bad growing up.
Right.
Or,
Like,
my older sister wasn't bad at all. She, she went to public schools and graduated and all that. Wasn't a problem. But the middle child, her and her friends, man, they ran the streets.
Okay. Got it.
But so my dad was more like, on top of raising my sister and seeing what she went through with her schooling, he was already motivated to have me succeed, being that he's from, another country, coming here, just got his citizenship. So most people that had that situation with their parents had the same story I got, that I talked to or met. It's like, you going to school and that's it. And if you don't do your homework, as soon as you get home, you get in trouble.
Right.
And let me find out you cut class. It was like, cutting class that wasn't even a thought in my mind. Because I knew, I think I went to Catholic school, so we used to have this thing called, what was it called? It was like detention.
Okay.
But it wasn't called that. But anyway, every day they give you a happy face or a sad face for the day. Like, if you did something bad, you get a sad face. Okay. Every day, your parent had to sign that book. Every single day. So if you got a sad face, I was getting in trouble. Like, and you get a sad face just for, like, I don't know, just misbehaving in class, just not paying attention and talking back to something. If I had one of them, I was in trouble. It was like, oh my God. Let alone like suspended.
Right.
All of that type of stuff. So it was no.
Just always tension.
I remember in first grade, I had got suspended. I didn't even really get suspended, but the teacher said I did.
Okay.
But I really didn't. They just made me believe it. I didn't want to walk home. Because I walked home with a bunch of people that lived on my block, and one of the ladies worked at the school. So she walked us all home. Her daughter was like, ended up, you call her a god sister. She passed away years ago.
Sorry to hear that.
I remember walking home, and I didn't want to go home because they was like, I got suspended. And then when I got home, I didn't want to talk. They knew something had happened, but I didn't want to tell them what happened. And they remember asking me. I remember them asking me what happened. I remember like, I can't tell you, I'm getting in trouble. And this happened because the teacher was like, next person making noise getting suspended.
Yeah, I remember those days.
And my homie John, you might know John, he went to Temple.
Okay.
John McCoy, he from Philly. Dark-skinned dude, had a beard the whole time.
Okay.
did he play football? You probably, I'll show a picture later.
Okay.
He was in my class in first grade. He was making faces at everybody at the table, and I like chuckled. And the teacher was like, "You're suspended. Go to the office." So I didn't. They didn't suspend me though.
Right.
But I thought I got suspended. Oh my god! And this like I was like 6 years old.
Okay.
Like the whole concept of getting in trouble was in my brain at that age that I wasn't doing nothing to get in trouble because I knew my dad wasn't having it.
Got it.
And that was all the way up till shoot, I done moved out. I'm a grown man. I'm like 27 years old at this point, and my dad will call my name, and there's a certain way he calls my name. I'd be like, oh, shit.
Right.
What did I do? Did I leave the windows unlocked? Did I leave the door? Wait a minute. I'm grown. I don't even live here no more. What could he be mad at me for? And then find out he wasn't even mad. It's just the way how he called my name.
Right.
Like, when I was a kid, I just knew. And I had ADD to the core. My dad would tell me to do something, and I'd go do it, and I'm forgetting and doing something else. 5 hours later, it ain't done. So he yelling at me for all kind of stuff. So yeah, that whole
dynamic.
It was crazy. And then my mom had multiple sclerosis.
Okay. What's your mom's name, by the way?
Teresa.
Shout out to Miss Teresa.
So
your mom had multiple sclerosis back in the 80s.
Yeah.
Okay.
They diagnosed her before I was born. So they knew.
Oh, back in the 70s.
Yeah.
When there wasn't a lot of medicine or technological advancements.
Nope.
Back then.
They didn't know. They didn't know what caused it. It could affect you different ways. They knew.
Some people, it takes their legs.
Yeah. It takes their legs. They knew that's what was happening to her. She was having nerve problems.
Okay.
Even the way how she moves her hands and arms was affected. But it mainly, she couldn't walk. By the time I was like 9 or 10, she was totally in a wheelchair. When I was younger, she had a wheelchair from as long as I could remember.
Okay.
But she can get up and walk, use a walker, or hold on to like the wall.
So you physically saw your mom walk before?
Yeah.
Okay.
I did. But not normally walk as how we walk. But she was up, moving around without,
right.
Without using a wheelchair. She actually could get up. But by the time I was like 12, she couldn't do that no more. So we had to carry her, pick her up, take her wherever she needed. She was hungry. Yeah, go downstairs, make her a plate, throw it in the microwave. She wanted you to. My mom smoked too, so later on, when I was like in my late teens, 20s, she had trouble lighting her cigarette, so I had to come light a cigarette. She can still do it sometimes, but the light, you know how if you smoke, your lighters don't work right, or
Right.
you know what I mean, certain lighters are easier than others, so it was to me, though, growing up in that household, it was normal life.
Right.
So I didn't think of it as anything special. I knew that my mom was different from everybody else's mom, and I knew that other kids didn't have to do the stuff I had to do. But I didn't think it was that different until I got older and looked back on it, and then even growing up, I would get this look from other people, other adults. Like, they always had this, they always looked at me like I was doing something special by just living at home with my mom, to me. But they was always telling me how good of a kid I was for what I'm doing, or they thought I was just so great of a child. I'm like, I just live at home.
Right.
Like my mom asked me to piss on what I'm supposed to say. No, like, don't other kids gotta do stuff for their mom when they home? But it's
amazing what is normal to every single person based on what they grew up around. Right.
It didn't hit me to the extent of how my life was different than other kids my age, because I knew it was, but it just didn't register that it was that big of a deal.
So that dynamic, when you got older, what did that make you like value or appreciate?
that definitely affected how I look at life in general. That my mom and dad, the whole situation of growing up in that household, because one, when you live with somebody that can't do for themselves,
Okay.
you value just the fact that you're able to do for yourself. So to me, that's like, once I got a car, I could literally go anywhere I wanted to go and do anything I wanted to do. So that to me is like total happiness, in a nutshell.
Okay.
So it's like, when you're able to just do for yourself without needing nobody for help for anything, that's like gold. You know what I mean?
Priceless.
Yeah.
Got
People don't have a lot. I mean, my mom didn't have that, and I grew up watching that since I was born.
Right.
So it gives me a different look on. Like, I'm real laid back, and I think that's probably why, because I don't let nothing really bother me, because at the end of the day, it's nothing that serious to me. Like, even at work, people getting stressed out at work over dumb shit to me. It's like, at the end of the day, I'm going home at 5 o'clock.
Right.
And I'm not thinking about none of this.
Now you're going home at 5 o'clock to your children. Do you eventually became a parent?
Yeah, I just had a son. He be 9 months, I think, in about 9 days.
Congratulations.
Thanks, man.
So with that being said, is this your first and only child?
First and only
so
child.
far.
So far, I'm gonna be one and done, man.
So you know who your parents were.
Uh-huh.
You know how they raised you because you were there.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say? And your son is only 8 months, about to be 9 months. What would you say? It's a tough question to ask to you. Are going to be some similarities and differences between your parents' parenting style and yours? Or is it too soon to ask? Is it too soon to ask that question?
It's kind of too soon, but let me answer it this way. It's kind of like you don't really know how you want to act until you're in that situation.
Right,
Like
right.
You think,
right.
I think I'm going to be this way.
Right. You watch a movie, you see somebody get stolen, you're like, yo, I would have aired him.
Exactly.
I would have beat
I
Debo
would've did
ass.
this, yeah.
You would have whooped Debo ass? Like, yo, you would have tucked your chain in like everybody else.
You hear people talk about slavery, like, man, if that was me, I'd have just...
Right.
Yeah, okay.
First dude off the ship said that.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, sir, master.
Like, you think you would have did that.
Right.
But
You wouldn't have picked no cotton, huh? You wouldn't have been alive.
it's like, I think... So, I know growing up, my relationship with my dad, I don't want to say it was a bad relationship. It wasn't a bad relationship.
Okay.
But it was... He definitely wasn't my friend.
Got it.
You know what I mean? He was definitely my father.
Okay.
He wasn't trying to be my friend, even though we did things, we played catch, and when I was younger, especially, we played around a lot, as, you would. But growing up, teenage years, he was definitely more of a father than a friend. And I kind of wish, looking back on it, we had more of a friendship bond than a father-son bond.
Okay. Why?
Because we didn't really talk about things. We didn't, things like, most of our conversations was him giving me fatherly advice of, this is what you should do, this is how you should be picking a career, these are the things you should look for. This is how you should treat people. You know what I mean? It wasn't like I couldn't come to him with like friendly conversations. Not that I couldn't, I just didn't feel that connection with him that I wish I felt now that I'm older. Both my parents passed away, by the way.
Sorry to hear that. Condolences.
So with my son, one of the things I wanted to have a son. I wanted to have kids in general, but I wanted to have a son specifically just because I'm always in my memories about growing up. That's one thing I wanted to do this video.
Appreciate you.
Because I'm always, with my homies growing up, we always talking about and reminiscing about things we did as kids or, you know, how we grew up, stuff like that. So having a son is almost like I get to relive my childhood. At least in my mind.
Gotcha. Okay.
So, you know what I mean? So I definitely wish, growing up with my parents and the things I went through is good and bad. And I think I learned from, and I want to not do the things I didn't like and do the things I did like from, you know, being raised by my parents.
Got it.
For example, my dad definitely had a quick temper.
Okay.
And he swung first and asked questions later. Like I got I got hit for stuff I didn't do plenty of times.
Welcome to my world. Welcome to my world.
Because he thought, you know what I mean? And
you
then
you know what my dad said? He was like, if I ever like beat you for something you didn't do, just think of it as, my dad literally said this, just think of it as something that you did that I didn't know about. That that was his thing. It's like, it's something you did I don't know about that I'm beating you for.
Yeah. I mean, I never got a real beating for something I didn't do.
Which is pretty abusive. You get beat for something that you did not do.
I heard one time specifically, my dad thought I didn't wash my hands. I didn't dry my hands after I washed them.
Really?
And he slapped the shit out of me. Because he kept saying, dry your hands. I'm like, what are you talking about? Because I didn't even wash my hands. I just turned the water on to do something.
Right.
I was probably like 9 out of 10. And he was like, oh, you ain't dry your hands? Whack. I'm like, I ain't wash my hands. Like, what you, I didn't even know what you was talking about. But, yeah, so I definitely don't want to be that. And I don't want to be quick-tempered. And that kind of affected me now. Like I told you, I'm real laid back.
Right.
I don't get pissed off easy. My dad had a quick fuse. Like, he'll be happy one minute and
on 100 the next.
Yeah, like I am not that guy.
Okay, okay.
But having a kid, I don't know. I might be that guy. It just ain't come out because I don't.
Well,
have
you got to catch yourself, right?
Yeah,
it'll happen, and you got to catch yourself.
But I don't
right?
know. My son ain't that old yet.
Right.
He's at the point now where I'm just mad. He doesn't really understand when I say stop. He looks at me like 5 minutes later, because he likes to crawl in places he's not supposed to go. He probably won't start walking by next week. He's standing up by himself.
Okay.
And like he'll fall after like, but he gets longer and longer.
Right.
But that affected me, you know.
So speaking of that, I'm sorry, did I cut you off?
And then my mom, you know, just
Okay.
valuing freedom, the ability to do for yourself.
Got it. Speaking of that, I bet you don't remember all the schools you went to growing up.
Oh, I definitely do.
All right, kindergarten, let's go.
Kindergarten.
Or pre-K, did you go? You went to
I went to
preschool?
preschool.
Okay.
And kindergarten, I went to a school called Prince Hall.
Prince
I
Hall.
think my nephew goes there now.
Where's that?
It's in West Oak Lane.
In West Oak Lane, okay.
Right near Ogons Avenue.
Okay.
Then I told you I got in trouble.
Yeah.
That was a public school.
Right.
I got in trouble when I was going to a Catholic school, which was like literally around the corner called St. Benedict's.
St. Benedict's,
So that
okay.
was first grade.
Is it still there?
It's still there. The school not open no more. It's a Catholic school and church.
Okay.
The church is still open, which it kind of the parishes combine. You know how Catholic schools are around the world is shrinking, especially around the country. I mean,
Okay.
some are getting closed down. So the church actually is still open. I thought it was closed, but I found it's still open.
Is your family Catholic, by the way?
Yeah.
Okay.
We weren't Catholic until I went to Catholic school, and then they made us become Catholic. I think by the time I was in 4th grade, I got baptized, and my mom and dad had to go through these classes called
Really?
RCIA classes. But it's funny because my aunt said my mom was always Catholic growing up. I'm like, mind you, not my other aunt. Well, my mom's aunt said that.
Okay.
And I'm like, my mom grew up in the house with 3 other sisters,
Right.
and a bunch of other people all lived in that house. Nobody's Catholic in that house. And they was like, your mom was, though. Like how does that doesn't make sense to me.
Right.
Like,
Right.
that, I don't know if she knows what she's talking about.
So you were from first to what?
8th.
Really?
First to
You did, so you did elementary and middle school there.
Yep.
How was that overall experience?
I enjoyed it. I think
Do you
it
like
was
Catholic
great.
school? Okay.
I mean, it wasn't. I just think the teachers were really good that I had there.
Okay.
And it's not that I couldn't have been in public school. It was definitely more structured. More from what I know about public school. I went to public high school, but my high school experience was not the normal high school experience. I'll tell you about that in
Okay.
a minute. But the Catholic school I went to, we all kind of like, the people that was there from 1st to 8th, it wasn't many of us,
Okay.
but it was a number of us. We consider each other's brothers and sisters, even though we don't really talk as much. They still like people I can see them to this day and be like, I had like a special bond with, just because we went to school together for so long. Like we knew each other at before the world influenced us when we was just like 6 or 7 years old. When
Right.
we were just natural who we were. You know what I mean? No like influence by the streets or anything. We was just,
Right.
you know, our personalities were what they were.
Right.
So it was people that is only some of, it's still enough of us around that, you know what I mean, that we still cool to this day.
Okay.
There's
Okay.
a couple of them I went to middle school, 1st grade through 8th and high school with.
Okay.
And then one man I went to Temple with
Wow.
after all that.
Okay.
1st grade to 8th grade through high school and Temple.
So by the way, your parents took education seriously, and you wound up going to college in
Yeah.
the city at Temple as well.
Yep.
Before we get to college, so you finish 8th grade with this bunch, with this group, and you go where
I went to Central High School.
for 9th through 12th?
Yep.
Okay, so you had a pretty stable. First of all, did you grow up in the same house the
Yep,
whole?
the
So
whole time.
the same house your whole childhood, both parents, and same school pretty much, except for the snafu in kindergarten.
Yep.
It's the same school. You had a
was
pretty
funny.
stable childhood. So you go to Central High School. Is that a public school?
Yeah, it's a public school. It's called a magnet school.
Okay.
You have to definitely have.
How
good
would you
grades.
describe a magnet school? What is it?
So magnet schools are schools that, it's 2 types of schools, and don't quote me on this. I'm not an expert at Philly school system, but
Okay.
there's the regular public neighborhood schools that if you live in a neighborhood by your zip code,
Right.
you can go here, here, or here.
So where would you have gone if you didn't go to Central? By the way, like what was the high school that
So the neighborhood school where I grew up is King, Martin Luther King.
Martin Luther
which
King?
was back then the worst high school in Philadelphia.
Got it.
Like, hands down, no questions asked. In the early 90s, if you went to King, everybody was like, dang.
got it.
You go to King, yeah, teacher got raped in that era.
Was there ever any conversation in your house, like when you were in 8th grade, like your parents talk, like with you, like what school, what high school you would
It
go
was,
to?
if I didn't get into Central,
Okay.
so yeah, there's the neighborhood schools and the magnet schools, which you had to apply to get in. You
Okay.
either had to have good enough grades or.
Did you apply to just Central?
I applied to Central, Masterman, engineering and science. Did I apply to all 3?
Did you
Might have been
apply?
all 3. I definitely applied to Masterman. And
I just interviewed someone who went to Bodine. Did you apply to Bodine?
Nah. Cause listen, if I
Was it
get,
Philly, North Philly?
shoot, if I'd have got engineering and science, I probably went there. But that's in North Philly too.
Okay.
Actually,
Okay.
there at Temple. But I didn't know that growing up. I
Got
didn't know
it.
it was there until I went to Temple. I'm like, oh shit, engineering science is in the hood.
Okay, right,
It's in the
okay.
hood, like Temple campus, couple blocks, engineering science,
Right.
literally hood.
Got it.
Like Temple's like on the
So-
outskirts of the
So
hood.
where's Central? Central is
Central's actually in, I guess this Western Wayne.
okay. Okay.
It's like literally on the border between Germantown, Western Wayne, Alney,
Okay.
and Logan. It's like
Okay. Got it.
depending on who you ask, you'll get a different answer.
You get one of those four
Yeah,
answers.
yeah, like-
Central's reality.
people I know-
Somebody might be like, I'll say Logan.
My man lived, the Central's right here on Old Guys Island. My man lived the next block down on this street.
Okay.
He claimed, he grew up claiming West Oak Lane, but then when we got older, he said he started claiming Logan because it made him sound harder. The people around there say they live in Logan.
So your dad was like, you're not going to King.
Yeah, if I didn't get into Central, I was going to Catholic high school.
Okay.
I would have been at Cardinal Dougherty. It was like A or B.
Got it. So you did get into Central.
Yeah,
So you got to stay in Philly. How far is Central from where you live?
It wasn't far at all. I could have walked. I walked home certain days.
Okay.
If I felt like it was a nice day out.
Got it.
It was like 10, 15 minute,
Okay.
15, 20 minute walk.
Okay. How was your high school experience?
Central, of course, everybody says this about their high school, if they like their high school anyway. But I think Central's the best high school in Philly.
How so?
And this is why I say that. It's not the smartest high school, which means, what I mean by that is, to get into Central, your grades didn't have to be as good as to get into Masterman or engineering and science.
Okay.
You had to have literally straight A's, no B's at all from like 6th, 7th, 8th grade, something like that.
Okay.
Central was not as strict as that.
Okay.
Also, Central has every public league, sport, football, track, and the sports teams are actually pretty good, depending on the years may go by.
Okay.
When I was there, our football team was 4-0 starting off, and then it fell off. But our senior year, I think that year, basketball team, after I got later, I know the women's won the public league title a couple of times. The men's
Basketball?
Yeah. I don't know if they ever won the title, but I know they was pretty good when
Oh, so like the top athletes and the smart kids went to Central. Like it was a mix.
And it was I won't say the top athletes, but every now and then, you know,
Right. You have
our
a good
track
squad.
team won the public league title in track.
Okay.
Like, you know what I mean? So it wasn't just a nerdy school. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Got
It
you.
was-
Got you.
Especially, they probably let people in that shouldn't get in. Because a lot of people get kicked out going through the years. Freshman year, you start off, you be squad deep with your homies, and by like junior year, you be like, damn, where everybody at?
Right.
But I think it was the best.
Okay.
It's a lot. And for the multicultural aspects of it, you name it, it was there. Religion, race. You was in classrooms with people that you didn't have. Like growing up in your neighborhoods. I think the first time I seen a Indian person in person, other than working at a store, was in Central.
Okay.
I had one Asian classmate in Catholic school. She was only there 1 year. Central's got probably like 35% Asian.
Got it.
It was a joke. They used to call it Kung Fu High. People from outside the thing.
All the Asian kids in Central.
Yeah. Like, yo, they tripping.
So you started experiencing other races, other cultures, other religions.
Other religions. One of my closest friends in high school was from Pakistan. His family's from Pakistan.
Okay.
Then, growing up in Philly, you meet Muslims. Philly's there's a lot of Muslims in Philly, but they're black Muslims.
Right.
Then you meet other Muslims from the Middle East.
Got it.
And you know what I mean?
Interesting.
So it's like you get exposed to things you don't really get exposed to from just growing up in
the
your
hood.
neighborhood,
Right.
And watching TV, and
Okay.
TV is only like stereotypical people. Then you actually get to hang with people you probably never got to hang with.
Right. With that being said, any interesting high school experiences?
In terms of what, like
What was your favorite high school moment?
favorite high school moment? It's funny. One of my close homies from high school called me yesterday, and we were just talking for like an hour about nothing.
Right.
I How could I put my high school experience like favorite?
Like overall, would you say you had a great high school experience, average, terrible?
I would say average.
Okay.
It wasn't terrible. I wasn't like the most popular. I was.
Did you ever go home and say, "Mom, I don't want to go here anymore"?
No.
So it was never that.
It was
Okay.
never that. One thing about my high school is they always said we preparing you for college, and we didn't really know what that meant at the time.
Okay.
You think, yeah, we getting ready. No, when you actually get to college and realize every class you have your first year, maybe into your second year, you did
Right.
this work already in high school.
Right.
Like
right.
my first year of chemistry and biology class, I didn't even have to go to class because I just remembered it from high school.
Right.
Like I did this. Like my physics, I passed physics 2, not going to class at all.
Wow.
So I didn't even have a book until damn near the final.
Okay. Got you.
And some of it I knew from high school. Some of it was like, I lucked up and I figured out it was a multiple choice Scantron test.
Right.
And they gave you a formula sheet. So I would just read the question and plug every number into the formulas on the formula sheet until I found numbers that matched one of the answers.
Okay.
And then I would,
Right.
pick that. So I'm like, all right, they gave me these numbers. Formula 9, 10, 11 has those values in the formula. Let me try one of those. Like, I literally didn't know what the hell the subject material was about. I just basically took numbers and guessed the formula. So.
And you feel like high school prepared you for that?
High school.
You were well equipped when you got to college.
Yeah, and then high school was like, I was always on the outskirts of like all these different cliques. Like I never was. Like Central it had a bunch of nerds there too. We had a whole nerdy clique. But I wasn't nerdy enough to be in the nerds clique.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Got you.
I wasn't cool enough to be in the cool people clique.
Right.
You know what I mean? But I was like cool with some of the people in there. So I hung with a whole bunch of different people.
Okay.
That I never was part of the clique
Per se. Right.
But they would include me in certain things, or I'd be included just because I was cool enough with some of the people there. You know what I mean? So that was good and bad. You know what I mean? I didn't have a lot of friends I was real tight with. I had a few. Like I said, one of my homies called me yesterday just to bust it up.
Did you work
During
high school?
I think
Do you remember your first ever job?
Yeah.
Okay.
At a swimming pool.
Okay.
Actually, it was so remember I told you growing up, everybody hung at the playground.
Right.
It was at that playground.
Okay.
It was called Morris Estate.
Okay.
We used to call it Estates. So they had a day camp and they had a swimming pool. So I worked at basically both of them.
Okay.
I was a camp counselor for the day camp, and then before camp started, I would work at the swimming pool. I wasn't a lifeguard. I was a pool monitor or pool maintenance assistant, what they call. Basically, somebody's got to be there at the pool 24/7. So they got 3 shifts, morning, afternoon, and overnight shift. And just got to make sure people not in the pool when it's closed. And the morning shift, the 7 to 3 shift, you had to put the chlorine in the pool and test it, make sure it had the right amount of levels and all that. But now that I'm older, I realized they was doing some shady shit because I wasn't supposed to be working both.
Right.
And they was paying me under the table, so they was using me like to work the pool when I wasn't supposed to be working the pool. I was supposed to be working the camp. So somebody else like was getting that money that they was hiring somebody to work at the pool. But oh man.
So let me ask you this: on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being the worst ever and 10 being the best possible, how would you rate your childhood?
My childhood, it was up there. I would have to say at least the 8.
At least the 8.
Yeah. I never even thought about it, but I knew I had both parents, and I knew that was, not common amongst
Right.
my peers. But, we weren't rich by no means. But my parents had me in, like, piano lessons, this thing called kinder music. I was barely in kindergarten. Now I'm taking music lessons. I was going on ski trips. You know what I mean?
Right.
Black people don't go skiing.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
I was skiing at age 7. You know what I mean? I went every year up until I was like 16.
You mentioned your Aunt Bunny used to take you guys skiing.
My Aunt Bunny used to take us skiing. Her son, which is my cousin, he 2 years younger than me. He was in the Boy Scouts and the Cub Scouts.
Okay.
So I wasn't in none of those scout troops, but I went on all their trips.
Got it.
I went skiing every winter. It was in every March. We went to the Poconos, and every summer was a summer trip. So I done been to Atlanta a couple times. I've been to Canada. I've been to Virginia. We went to Colonial Williamsburg and Busch Gardens and all that.
So you really saw life outside of your hood?
Yeah, like
okay.
I wasn't just. And it's funny because now I work for the Department of Defense, work for the Army, and I travel a lot. And you know, when we went on these trips as kids, it kind of prepared me for like what I do now.
Got it.
Because one, I'm 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, going on staying in hotel rooms with. They was group us by kids. They wouldn't have us all. It wasn't enough adults for all the kids that was
right.
So they would put kids your age group in the same room, and somebody had to be the responsible one that had the key. And all, we like 10 years old, 4 10-year-olds. Somebody had to be a responsible 10-year-old.
Right.
You know what I mean? And then when we left, we checked out. We had to make sure we didn't leave shit. If somebody left something, we had to pay. Of course, the adults would check all the rooms.
Right.
Anybody that left something, they would collect it and charge us $1 for every item to get back.
Got it.
So to this day, when I leave a room, we always do like when we was doing them trips, we do like a check. So to this day, when I check out a hotel, and there's a certain way we do it. We pack all our stuff, stack it outside the door, and go back in the room, and then go through all the rooms, look at the bed, da 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 da. To this day, I do that now. Because I done left chargers, random stuff in hotel rooms that I went back and checked before I left. Like, oh, I lost my watch. I left my watch last time I went somewhere. Like, damn.
Do you have a worst childhood day that you like to forever forget? Speaking of traveling.
Yeah, I remember one of them trips. I got, we was in Colonial Williamsburg. I got lost.
Okay. How old were you?
I think I might have been 7.
Okay.
I might have been younger than that. Might have been 6. But again, they split us all in the age groups and they took us on a tour. I don't know if anybody you ever been to Colonial Williamsburg. It's like everybody dressed in colonial era outfits, and they take us in different rooms about what they did around those times. So they were showing us how they made rifles or muskets, whatever it was called.
Okay.
So I remember the one dude showed us, we looked down the barrel of the rifle. You see the grooves is like spiral grooves.
Right.
And then they took us around, and then somehow I ended up getting back in line with another group of kids that looking at the same stuff. So I was like, wait, I saw this already.
Right.
Then I looked around, and I did not recognize nobody. So that feeling was like traumatic.
The first time you felt like fear.
Yeah, like when you get lost, especially I was old, you know, I wasn't 2 or 1. You know what I mean? I'm old enough to realize
to know what's going on.
Yeah,
that
like,
you lost.
Like, oh,
where are my
shit.
people?
And I'm in Virginia. And I'm lost.
Like, we're not in the hood. I'm somewhere.
Around,
like,
like
I
in
feel
the supermarket around people I could get. I'm in Virginia around all these white people.
Right.
Like,
yeah, I eventually came.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's funny because she had a feeling to come check on me.
Right.
Which I probably was only lost for like 10 minutes.
Right, but it seemed like
felt
eternity.
Like, and you know, I always remember. I always think about things that happened when I was a kid.
Okay.
And I don't remember crying about it, but
Right.
I know I had to be.
Okay.
But yeah, that happened, and
You also mentioned your cousin's house.
Yeah.
Something happened at your cousin's house.
I was in a fire.
Really?
It was a crazy fire. It was on the news and everything.
Okay.
And I remember I smelled the smoke. I remember these two events. I remember like it was yesterday.
Okay.
I smelled smoke. I turned around.
Was this during the day, at night?
It was Saturday morning. We was watching Glow.
The gorgeous ladies in wrestling.
I had to been like 6 or 7. This had to be like 87, 86.
Okay.
My cousin was older. He was like, something stink. And I wanted to say that, but I didn't want to be disrespectful talking about the house stink.
Right, right.
But I smelt it. I'm like, so then I turned around. It was a big wall of white smoke. And then, long story short, it was a house. The house next door was on fire.
Okay.
And for some reason, we got out the house, and they put me and my younger cousin. We were sitting in the car.
Right.
Which was like maybe like 3 houses down. I remember watching the flame shoot out this front window.
Okay.
It was like, there was one of them joints where it was like breaking news on Channel 6. The news trucks was out there.
Right.
It was like a 9 alarm, 8 alarm, something crazy.
Okay.
But for some reason, I'm sitting in the car thinking I'm going to die. Me and my cousin sitting there, and I'm like, we're going to die.
Right.
We already made it out the house.
But that was a feeling of fear that you experienced from seeing all the smoke. That wasn't normal for a little kid.
That feeling, and that to this day, when I smell that smell, I instantly know something's on fire somewhere, and it brings me back to that day. Like,
so let's flip it. Do you have a favorite childhood day or time period that you would like to go back to if you could?
Favorite childhood. The most fun we had was when we used to have these block football games.
Okay.
It'd be my block versus 16th Street.
Okay.
Or my block versus the other 16th Street.
Okay.
Those was the days. And then when we were just, as a squad, we was like 10, 15 of us as kids playing on the block, playing random games, manhunt. And then in middle school, at St. Benedict's, we used to have this football league.
Okay.
Where it was from 5th to 8th grade. The 8th grade would be the captains. It was 4 teams. They would pick your teams.
Right.
It was like 5-on-5. They had a baseball league too, but eventually it was just football. And those games, that was like a real league. Like, we had uniforms. The pastor was the ref. We had a schedule. Top 2 teams all the teams made the playoffs. We played in the championship game. We got trophies. Those games was like, you know what I mean? Growing up, you think everybody think they gonna be an athlete.
Right.
You gonna go pro.
Who'd you want to be?
Oh man, I wanted to be Eric Allen and Isaiah Thomas.
Got it.
I was a big Eric Allen fan.
Okay.
He wore his jersey a certain way.
Right.
And I used to wear mine when I started playing football.
That same way.
Yeah, he used to always tuck. He would have one side tucked in and one side hanging out.
And by the way, what was manhunt? How do you describe it? Because it might have been the same game as somebody else's hood, but a different name.
I heard this, man. We played this game called Wireball, but I'll answer your question first. Manhunt was, everybody had like a toy gun, a water gun, or like a pop gun.
Okay.
And somebody was it. But he had to go hide. And we had to go find them.
Right.
But it was like, you had to kill them. It was like, we had fake guns. So
it was a
like,
more gangster version of hide and seek.
Yeah, exactly. But we used to use walkie-talkies and all that. That shit used to be mad fun.
Now, you mentioned that, so growing up, you wanted to be either an astronaut or an engineer. Or
Yeah, growing up, I wanted to be an astronaut when I was young, like 3, 4, 5.
Okay.
And I don't know. My parents, that's another thing. My parents always had me doing educational stuff, even though I never realized that they was doing. You know what I mean? Like, as a kid, you're not in control of the toys you get. Your parents buy them. You know what I mean? You're not in control of like the stuff you watch as a kid. You think you are. Growing up, looking back on it, it's like, 'cause now that I got a kid, I understand. Like, no, I ain't gonna buy him this toy. I'm buying this toy because it'll help him learn something. You know what I mean? So I had books that had stuff about space and science type topics. My bed sheets was the universe with all the planets. You know what I mean? I was watching the space shuttle launches at 5. I remember I was pissed when Mom would wake me up to watch the shuttle launch.
Right.
I was mad as hell. Like, stuff like that. But then when I got older, when I really was thinking about what I want to be when I got like high school and college age.
Okay.
My man, his dad had all these cars.
Right.
My man grew up with all the best sneaks. Jordans came out, he had them. Anything new that came out, he had it.
Okay.
Video game systems, he had them. His house was popping. His pop was an engineer.
Ah, okay.
I had no idea what an engineer did
Right.
or what it took to be an engineer. I knew I was just what I wanted to be. And I was always good at math and science.
Do you know today what an engineer does?
Oh, yeah.
What does an engineer do?
I'm an engineer now.
You are an engineer.
Yeah.
Okay. Tell everybody what you do.
So,
Like high level.
high level. I'm a software engineer.
Okay.
Engineering is like the broadest field ever. Like, engineers could do 85 different things.
Okay.
So, what I do is I'm a software engineer, so I have to design software systems. I don't actually code. I don't actually write the software that does it.
Okay.
We have a programmer that does it, but I'm in charge of the architecture, the design, the project management of it.
Okay.
When we actually fix certain bugs with it.
Right.
What it physically looks like.
Okay.
The actual screens. How
Oh,
we install,
okay.
like,
So the engineer is like the designer, the architect of the
Yeah.
whole thing.
Right,
Got it.
right.
Got it.
Like what the icon on the desktop looks like. What happens when you double click it. What's in the menus when you click file menu. All of that type of stuff. Everything that is displayed to the user. I'm the person in charge of
Wow.
designing it and making sure it works right.
That's mad cool. Previously, when I asked you if anything in your childhood, were there any events in your childhood that kind of like affected you for life? You had said that having a handicapped mother
Oh yeah.
and a foreign dad molded my outlook on life.
Yeah.
How so?
Kind of touched on this a little earlier. It's
Okay.
like basically when you grow up in that situation where with somebody that's handicapped that can't do for themselves, it has to affect you. Even subconsciously, when you see somebody going through that, you value that you don't have to go through that.
Right.
So that kind of, I have like a humble outlook on life. Like my outlook on life is as long as you're able to physically do what you want, you good.
Okay. Okay.
So I don't get upset over. I've been in a couple car accidents, and I had to use the bus. I had no problem hopping on the L, hopping on the bus, getting on the trolley,
Right.
getting on the sub. I had no problem doing none of that.
And what's the L?
And Philly Philly basically got two train systems: the underground and there's another one called the L, which stands for elevated.
Okay.
I thought it was called the L because it go in the L shape. But no, it's called it's elevated. It's basically the trains in Philly.
Okay.
Like,
Okay.
I had no problem doing none of that. You know what I mean?
Right.
Even when I worked in Jersey, I worked in Fort Monmouth, New Jersey, which is like an hour and a half from Philly.
Okay.
I would still come back to Philly with no car, catching the New Jersey Transit from like a 4-hour bus ride. I didn't care. I'm like, I'm physically able to go to Philly. If I want to go, just get up and go. If
Right,
you got to take
right.
a 4-hour bus ride, all right. Go to sleep. Find
Right.
something to listen to, read. You wake up, you home.
So kind of like almost nothing gets you down.
Yeah, like, I don't want to say nothing, but, you know what I mean? The regular stuff, that type of stuff, doesn't faze me at all, one bit. Like, I don't even stress about doing it. The only stress is you know, thinking about how to actually get it done. Like, all right,
Okay.
if it's a 4-hour bus ride, I need what I'm going to do for a 4 hour. But it doesn't discourage me to not do it. You know what I
Got
mean?
it.
Like, if I had to do stuff, some people are like, I ain't doing that. Or they get all like, I got to find me a car. I'm good.
Got you.
That type of stuff. And then with my dad, well, one, watching him being a husband to his wife was handicapped, he basically had to take care of her. So, just watching that dynamic and how he raised me, even though it was some negative aspects to it, at the end it was mostly positive, and I know that I grew up I also coached Little League football, and a lot of the kids that I coached didn't have it. You could tell who has a father at home and who doesn't, just by the way how the kids act.
Really?
Yeah. So just being a father, is a certain. I know how my dad raised me, and I know the good and bads from that. So I want to take that into me being a parent.
What's your overall perception of how your childhood affected your life? Like, who are the person you are today? Who is the 2021 version of Chris? Who are you today? Who is the man you became? Do you feel that all your childhood experiences kind of like on top of having a handicapped mom, a disabled mother, and a foreign father, on top of those two things that were in your house every day, your overall composite experience, do you feel like that molded you into the person you are today? And who are you today?
Yeah, besides what we talked about with my mom and dad, just overall, the events I experienced, and the people I had in my life, friends, neighborhood, the neighborhood I grew up in, all of that definitely had input into how I became who I am today. And who am I? I would like to think I'm a good person.
Okay.
You
feel like you turned out to be a good dude.
Yeah, I feel like I did. Ain't nobody perfect. I have my negative traits just like everybody else. But overall, coming from the neighborhood I come from, and it's even worse in other neighborhoods, especially back in my era. But I had a lot of good role models. Like my block had a lot of, like, and growing up today, I see it now with like I don't know a lot of my neighbors on my block. Where I grew up, not every single house we knew, but pretty much all the older ladies and men on the block, they watched out for us. They knew who we was. They knew our parents.
It was really a village.
Yeah, like all of that kept most of us out of trouble. You know what I mean? Even when we was doing bad, somebody saw us, and they would tell our parents,
Right?
And because they knew our parents.
Right.
You know what I mean? So that definitely affected us. For the most part, everybody I grew up in my neighborhood, we all turned out pretty good. There's a few exceptions. Some people who was in the streets, you know what I mean? And even them, they turned out, they was in the streets, but they still turned out not to be the craziest dudes.
Right,
You know
right,
what I mean?
right,
They
right.
in the streets, but they still got goodness to them. You know what I mean? They still got respect for all the older people on the block that raised them, quote unquote, raised them. So overall, I had like, I don't think I could have had a much more positive experience based on, what I seen that else could happen, especially a Philly kid. You know what I mean? So I was able to have a so far successful career as an engineer. Traveled the world, been overseas a few times, and
If there's a kid out there watching this who wants to become an engineer, what do they need to be good at?
definitely need to be good in math. And it's funny, to be an engineer, really, you have to get a degree in engineering. So
Right.
that aspect, you have to be good at math and science. But once you actually have a degree,
Okay.
you might not even use anything you learned.
Right.
Still,
like every other degree.
Yeah, but you just have to be a critical thinker.
Okay.
And you got to be able to,
What does that mean to be a critical thinker?
like, engineers, it's like I said, it's a broad field. It all has to do with building something, creating something,
Okay.
figuring out what's wrong with something, why something doesn't work,
Okay.
all that type of stuff. So you got to be able to use your brain to be analytical, I guess.
Even you can apply that to real life.
Yeah.
Real life situations, right?
Definitely.
Right.
Any situation. Most engineers we feel like we can run the world. We feel like there's no job we can't do because any job you have to have a brain at some point.
Right.
Even if you were a cashier or if you stocking equipment I used to work for UPS growing up.
Okay.
You have to put packages in a certain way or the shit's gonna collapse on this stuff.
Right.
Like,
Right.
it doesn't matter what you're doing. If you a cashier, you gotta know how to count money. You gotta do math. You gotta know how to make change. You know what I mean? Like it's nothing. At some point, you gotta use your brain.
Even the worst jobs. If you're a drug dealer, you gotta use your brain.
No, the drug dealers be like the smartest dude.
Yeah, exactly.
So how you don't know how to do fractions, but you can break down an eighth and a 16th. You know how to use a scale. You know how many ounces into a pound. Like yo, I can't do that.
Right. So with all that being said, I want you to give some advice to blank-year-old Chris. Like if you, with everything that you know now and the person you are today, everything you experience, if you could talk to a younger version of yourself, how old would he be and what would you say to him?
Man, it's a lot. If I want to talk to 10-year-old me.
Okay, 10-year-old Chris.
Maybe like 12-year-old me.
Okay.
I was real self-conscious, shy, didn't talk a lot, and I wasn't good at making friends, especially like in a school setting, especially like high school, because I was not very talkative, or I was real shy and quiet and self-conscious about, I didn't like my voice. I didn't have like the best clothes. But put me in a sports setting, I'm good. Or, I wasn't shy around my friends I grew up with.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it was like, and it's funny because, like I said, I didn't have a lot of friends in high school. I was cool with certain people from every clique. And that's because somehow I got cool with them where it was like we would interact and we would have like a bond at some point where we became cool. But I didn't do that with everybody because I don't know. I don't really communicate well when I talk in terms of like I don't think of the right words to say. I work better in a setting where on the internet, like I can type out what my thoughts are, and I can get it out. If I don't look right, I can rewrite it. You know what I mean? When you in a face-to-face setting, you might I misspeak a lot, where I used the wrong words and I didn't really mean that. Now that I'm older, it's not as bad because I got more experience in talking. But as a kid, it was really bad. In fact, I stuttered. Nobody really know that I stutter, but it only happens when I try to talk too fast and I don't know what I'm saying. Because my mom stuttered too, and she had the same problem. So if I had to give advice, it would be to just say, F it. Don't just, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what nobody else thinks. Even if they think the worst, at the end of the day, they not going to affect anything about you one way or the other. So if you misspeak, so what? You can correct yourself later.
Right.
They might think you crazy or weird, but so what? They going to think whatever they want to think anyway. You know what I mean? So I would not be talkative as much around certain people because I didn't want to get laughed at because people didn't know what I was trying to say or whatever. Or I would start stuttering, or, you know what I mean? So I would just go back and say, don't even worry about that because at the end of the day, just be you, and people either going to rock with you or not, or they're going to make fun of you either way. So that, like 20-year-old me, 24-year-old me, I was telling them to invest in Bitcoin or something. Because now I'm older, I'm like, damn, if I did some of this stuff like 10, 15 years ago, imagine. Like I had ideas about, I remember in 2003, we had to do our senior design project at Temple. And we did, it was a successful, I don't want to get into all that. So right after that, I had all these ideas. Me and my man, he now works for Intel, well, he used to. He was high up. Intel, one of the highest, biggest computer companies. They make all the chips. He was like high up in the offices. He was like one of the top black dudes at Intel.
Okay.
We had all these ideas that we wanted to do coming out of college. And basically, like some of the technology we see now with like Amazon and like Ring doorbells and all that. We was thinking all that stuff in 2003 that we could have like started doing some of this stuff. We'd have been in on it, you know what I mean, or at least invest in the companies that's doing it. But we just procrastinated and let life go on.
Right,
Looking
right,
back,
right.
like, yo, we thought of this 15 years ago. Had the conversation, talked about how this should work, everything, and now it exists, and we like just on the sidelines. But
I wish you would have just did it.
yeah, just jump into it. If you fell, oh well, you be at the same place you would have been at if you didn't do anything. You know what I mean? So that'll be advice for even like 30-year-old me. If I did this 10 years ago, so
Just do it.
Yeah.
Got it, Chris. Thank you for being here, man.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for doing this.